And now we're going to go into the question of where to begin. And I'll start again with a quote. In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities, but in the experts, there are few. So I'm going to suggest that we all begin any new adventure with beginner's mind. We don't know what it's going to be like. We're just open to possibility, just like a little child exploring, right? So this person says, I just cannot seem to get organized to begin. And I'm wondering, and I think maybe there are other people who feel this way, is there a bit of perfectionism that's keeping you from getting started? And what might happen if you just started without getting organized to begin? What if you just went ahead and started without having to get organized? What area bothers you the most? You might start there, or you might start somewhere that's really easy. And I do have a blog post that I'll share around that one as well.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the process itself is so chaotic, and that can be uncomfortable. And I don't know if that's anything that you were trying to get to with your question. And so I really encourage you to practice getting grounded and steady within, connecting with an inner sense of organization, an inner sense of clarity, can help you have more success in handling the outer chaos of the process, as I was talking about earlier. And again, giving yourself some time to just sit with your belongings can be helpful in that. And again, like possibly picking a micro area or a small area to begin with. And as Pam was saying, just jumping in. The next question in this section about how to begin is, my struggle is coming up with a way to declutter and staying that way, which again, I think a lot of people can relate to. I feel like a hoarder in the making. Sometimes the problem is knowing where to begin. Even if I pick a spot to start with, it feels overwhelming. I just need help. And so again, as I spoke about in an earlier question, identifying what's triggering that overwhelm can be really helpful. Maybe it's feeling like you're never going to get it all done, or that there's emotional triggers connected to some of the objects. And so understanding what is bringing that up can help you determine what you need to actually be able to stay calm. I really recommend for anyone on this call or anyone decluttering and purifying to establish a calming ritual before you begin. I just want to share a little story. This seems like a good place to put it in. Not that long ago, and so this is what I do, right? This is my job, to help people to purify and to stay calm and overcome the overwhelm. And I was like, I'm going to purify this closet. And I opened up the door, and I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't thinking. I just started getting stuff out, and I got super overwhelmed. And I just had to laugh and stop myself. And I was like, oh, wait, this isn't how we purify. This isn't how we declutter from a holistic perspective, Michael. Stop. Breathe. And so I sat down. I had the door open so I could see the things that I was going to be decluttering. And I just sat with it. I breathed a little bit. I drew an angel card. So you do whatever those spiritual practices are, those calming practices, whether it's mindfulness meditation or anything else that helps you to feel calm and centered. So you may have a mantra that you use. I know for me, I don't know if y'all can see this. I have a key on my necklace that says breathe. And when I wear this, I can feel it around my neck, and it helps me to feel centered. For some people, it may be having a crystal that you carry in your pocket. So giving yourself that gift of, before you're just jumping into your process, having some type of ritual that you can lean into every time you're starting a decluttering and purifying session can be really helpful. It can also be helpful to set a timer so that you can give yourself breaks and chances to check in, so you're not getting overwhelmed without actually realizing it until you're kind of burnt out. Yeah, and then having a plan about how to move forward in some sort of organized fashion with having piles and areas where you're going to put different things. Yeah. So I just wanted to share some of those more concrete tips that can really help with calming and kind of getting that sense of where and how to begin. Yeah. Pam, did you have anything you wanted to share on that one?
No, and I'm noticing that we're not doing very well on time. We've got a lot more questions than we have time.
True.
So I'm not exactly sure how to navigate that, but what I've been doing is sort of scrolling through the questions, and I want to just maybe speak a little bit about each of the next two categories of questions, and maybe not read each question, but again, we will follow up via email. And those of you who have the option of staying on until 11:30, Michael and I are willing to do that, and we understand that if you have a hard stop at 11:15, feel free to go. And we are recording this, and you will be able to hear anything that we talk about after that time. In the recording. So the next category is self-talk, criticism, and beliefs, which is really so key that I feel like I have to rush through it. But if the quote is from Denise Linn, who's one of my favorite feng shui people, if you want to discover your subconscious dreams, fears, and beliefs, just look around your own home. You will find them represented in every nook and cranny. So, Michael, I think you sort of did your little self-talk thing already, right?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about those beliefs that can come up. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, the questions were about noticing perfectionism and self-criticism, and one person in particular talked about paperwork and being held back because of the fact that they knew that the negative self-talk was going to come up. Well, first of all, they're on the right track. They're noticing the self-talk, and that gives you an opportunity to change it and flip it. And we did talk a little bit about that earlier, about finding ways to be more compassionate and gentle and say I could instead of I should, and to look at your vision and, journal about that, meditate about that, and visualize success. And you have the power. First, I want to say that a lot of those thoughts and a lot of those beliefs, you didn't make those up. You picked those up from childhood or from someone else altogether. They don't have to be yours anymore. You are at choice. You're all grown-ups now. You can choose to change your beliefs and your thought patterns. And yes, sometimes it's very difficult if we've internalized, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you don't know how to do this. If you weren't taught to organize, it's hard. It's not easy. And it is possible, and it is critical, not just around your decluttering, but around your whole, life, living your life, to get in touch with that self-criticism and that perfectionism and think about ways to flip it around. And Michael, if you don't mind, I'm just going to sort of plow along here.
I would just like to add one thing to that, just to kind of tune in with that quote from Denise Linn around, all of those subconscious fears and beliefs are showing up in the stuff around us, so that whenever we are decluttering and purifying, we get to purify those beliefs. So when that self-criticism comes up or that negative belief comes up, it's not a problem. We just get to go, oh, I noticed this, and this also gets to be purified in the process of working through this decluttering. So there's much more to say about that, and I hope that lands, because then the process can really become one of self-love and self-compassion as we are purifying away those beliefs that are no longer serving us, just like we're letting go of the stuff that's no longer serving us.
Yeah. So there's a question about clothing that I'm going to pass by for now, but we will maybe have time to come back to. If not, we'll cover it in the follow-up. But I want to talk because I want to get to this because it's so important and something that so many people struggle with, and that is sentimental items and attachments to things. And on one of my other Q&A calls, somebody was saying they were struggling so much with that, and I suggested that they not do that first. And that was their big takeaway from the whole hour was, I don't have to do that first. I could do something easier and come back to that. And that gives you a chance to build your decluttering muscles, watch yourself talk, learn new ways to speak to yourself more compassionately. So I would suggest that you not begin with memorabilia. And then Michael does have some thoughts about when you get to that place, how to move through it with more ease.
Yeah, and I can point you all to a podcast episode too. The one just came out. I think it's episode 77. It's on using your intuition to declutter and purify. And then I'll have another one coming out on Wednesday with some follow-up around that. I talk about something that I call the intuitive sorting skill, because sometimes what happens with these attachments is it's often some beliefs associated with that, like maybe it's hard to let go because it feels like you might forget the memory, or it's hard to let go because it feels like you're letting go of an actual person. And I feel like when we can tap into our intuition and we can get really clear about whether we truly love a belonging, whether it's really serving us, and how we want to move forward, that can really serve us in making more clear decisions, and starting to release some of those attachments if they're not serving us. And of course, I just want to say it is so totally fine to hold on to things that you have an attachment to. There are no rules here. It's not like, well, it's been 5 years since a loved one passed away and now I have to let go of everything. That's not true. You get to decide. You get to make the rules. As Pam was saying, like, you're an adult now. You can choose your beliefs. You can choose what you hold on to. And yeah, I feel like we could have made this 2 hours easily so we would have more time.
Yeah, and Michael did try to convince me to make it longer, and I was like, I don't think people, I just didn't think people would want to give up an hour and a half on Saturday morning. But
fair enough.
Anyway, we will share these other things. And somebody just asked in the chat whether Michael could share the link to her podcast. And yes, we're going to share links to many, many podcasts and many blog posts in our follow-up email. So don't worry about that at all.
And we can put the quotes in the follow-up too. Do you want to do that, Pam?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I just threw the quotes in this morning, but I'm loving them. So someone said they had been focusing on keeping items that bring joy, and I think that's awesome. And they were also, there were things that were bringing up mixed emotions. And that was about overwhelm as well. Oh, yeah, this is an interesting one that I've heard from clients as well. Some people hold on to things, sentimental items, because they are afraid they're going to forget, that the things are their memory. And I totally understand that because I have a horrible memory. And so I appreciate looking at old photos for that reason. But particularly in today's age, there are so many other ways to keep your memories than to just hold on to the object. You can take pictures. You can you can just take pictures. And also a wonderful thing to do, and particularly if you are getting up in years, a wonderful thing to do for your heirs is to maybe record yourself talking about a particular object, or write about that object for your heirs to learn, because that object brings up all kinds of emotions for you, but not for anybody else. So if you want people to appreciate, your experience of an object, recognize that you would need to share that with them in some way. Another thing about treasures is that you can often make a special place or a little altar. I made a little altar downstairs with things that represent my mom when she passed a year or two ago. And So I don't have to keep everything from my mom. Just a few representative items. So that's one of my thoughts about is create a special space. If there are objects that you love and they're stuck in your attic or your basement in a box, you're not doing them justice. Give them a space in your home. And if you're not able to give them a space in your home, at least go through them occasionally and appreciate them. Share them with other people who might want to appreciate them, because anything that's untouched and in a box like that, it's dead energy. Mm-hmm. It's not serving you. And we don't have time to get into feng shui here, but that's what it's all about, is the energy of stuff. So, Michael, any last thoughts on that before we move to family and inherited?
Well, and I'm realizing we have about 5 minutes, so I'm wondering, in case there are people who need to jump off the call right at 15 after the hour, if we should do our prize drawings and then come back and wrap up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because I want to honor the time, and then we can come back and see how we want to. If we want to, you and I said we can stay longer. So
okay, awesome, good idea. Yeah. All righty, and we really did try to time it, and it seemed like we were going to have plenty of time, but I don't know.
We get to talking.
It's just like everything else. Okay, so this I have a little bowl here with folded up names. So, Michael, we're only doing the 2 prizes, the purifying session and the virtual organizing session. You're also going to each get a freebie from Michael and I, and, we may be able to offer you some other, premium discounted services or something like that as we go along. Okay, so this one's going to be for a purifying session with Michael, and I want to tell you that Michael and I swapped sessions last week, and it was so insightful and fascinating, and I got to go through some papers that I had not been wanting to go through. All right, So the winner is, let's see if they're on here. Don't think this person is here. There's not a Janice on here, right? Okay, somebody else is going to get a chance then. Anna. Is Anna here?
Oh, I see it, Anna.
Yeah, there is an Anna. Anna R.
Right.
Yep. Okay, Anna R. So Anna R., I will hopefully have enough information to figure out what your last name is and how to send, and have Michael send that to you.
Yeah, we'll be in touch, Anna.
The next one is going to be a 1-hour virtual organizing session with me. If you're really jonesing for that and you don't end up winning it, I do have a special going on, a 3-hour special, which is very affordable. Let's see, this is, so we had an Anna R and we have an Ann H. Is Ann H here? So I better write down Anna R has got the Purify, and Ann H has got the decluttering. If for any reason, I just see Ann on here, so I don't know if it's Ann H. If for any reason I discover that she's not on the call, then I'll draw a second one. So that's it for the drawings. So what we're going to be going into now, just so you can, if you want to make a decision about whether to stay on or if you need to leave, and again, there'll be a recording, we're going to talk about, for these extra 15 minutes, for those who can stay, we're going to talk about family and inherited items. We're going to talk about grief. That's very short. Time is also very short. And then how to make decluttering and purifying exciting and not feel like a chore. All righty. The family and inherited items, I have a quote, but I didn't find it in time. But it's about how many seeds of suffering have been handed down by our ancestors. It's a quote by Thich Nhat Hanh. Some of you may have seen it in my newsletter. So that's the one that I usually use to frame conversations about family and inherited items. I think there are not only seeds of suffering that are handed down, but also seeds of joy. But I think that Thich Nhat Hanh's point is that we don't have to hold on to our suffering. We don't have to hold on to our ancestors' beliefs and thought patterns. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to speak to that a little bit. I have some things from my parents, and as the oldest child, I feel responsible for taking care of them. Even though I know that no one after me is likely to want them or care for them. So, oh wait, this is not me. This is somebody else's question.
Right, that was our question.
That doesn't sound like me, but I am the oldest child. Okay, so yeah, this person was saying that as the oldest child, they feel responsible, and they don't mind the responsibility, but they do mind the space everything takes up. Mm-hmm. And of course, when we inherit things, we want to be a good steward of those items. We also don't want them to limit us or hold us back. And I think that the people who gave them to us or that passed them down to us wouldn't want that for us either. So that's one thing to think about as you're dealing with inherited possessions is, would this person from whom I inherited this want me to feel stuck with it? And if they love you, the answer is probably no.
Yeah, I love that perspective. And I think the other thing, when we've inherited things, and as this question points to, that it takes up space. It takes up space in our homes, or we need to have a storage space, or it takes up space in the attic. And I think it's important to look at, because this person, you're saying you do mind the space that everything takes up. And it's not only taking up space in your home, it's taking up space within. And so I think that's worthy of some exploration and just noticing of what that experience is like, to have some space taken up within by these inherited objects, and maybe finding a new way to navigate that. And I think, what Pam's pointing to is, again, like that we get to let go of some of these rules about, as the oldest child, I feel this responsibility. Like, where does that come from? How do we inherit that belief too?
The next question is about grief. And it's also about documents. So this one we didn't really feel like we had enough information to get to the heart, to know exactly what whether it was mostly about grief or mostly about how to sort the documents. So I will include some information about, how to deal with lots of documents, and just reiterate Michael's observations that you can bring your whole self into the process and bring your emotions into it. And then, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, that was it. If you have more to say before we move on to time, do go ahead.
Well, in the chat quite a while ago, Elizabeth had said grief includes the death of dreams that have had to be abandoned. And so I think, when we are decluttering and purifying, we may notice grief coming up around the loss of a loved one, but we may also notice grief coming up around being with belongings that represent something that's lost. Maybe it's, a past career, or it really could be anything. Our objects represent so many aspects of our lives. And so don't be surprised if grief in some sort of way comes up, or some sort of sadness or regret. And to make space for that, to journal about it, to feel it. So if you notice, wow, I open this box and I just feel this flood of sadness coming over me because I miss my grandmother, or because there's something going on, I don't even know what it is. You don't need to press that down and suppress it because right now I'm decluttering. Allow that to be part of your process, and allow that to be part of your healing as you're working through and decluttering your space.
So the last one is one that came to us yesterday, and I am going to go ahead and read the question because I think we have time. I love checking my stocks on the internet. So exciting when a position is going up, and then there's that feeling that happens when a position is going down. But either way, I'm curious to check on my stocks every day. And here's the question. How might I cultivate that level of curiosity for the action of decluttering? And then I had an exchange with this person, and she later said, that she thinks it has to do with activating the pleasure centers in the brain, and dopamine. How can we do that? And then she actually ended up answering her own question later on. But I'll go ahead and let Michael share what her thoughts were on that. And then perhaps we'll share our friend who asked the question's answer, if with her permission.
So what I love about purifying, and when we take this more holistic approach to decluttering, is that we can start to even experience it as a treasure hunt, and we can put a different flavor to it, where we might go, oh, decluttering is the worst, and who wants to spend all day in the attic, or who wants to spend all day cleaning out this closet in this apartment? And instead of taking that initial approach, what if we go, what am I going to discover today? What am I going to find in these boxes that have been tucked away? And getting curious about it, getting excited about what you might find, what you might be able to shed and let go. How exciting is it when we let go of something and we feel that our energy can rise a little bit, we can breathe a little bit more easily because we're not carrying around that old weight. And what about the things that we discover that have been tucked away for years and years that we love, and wow, I want to frame this and put it up so I can see it every day? To me, there's nothing more exciting than that. And it truly does spur my curiosity every time I get into some area of my home. And I see this with my clients too, the connections that we can make about our relationship to our belongings and what it means for who we are and who we're becoming. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. So yeah, maybe you could just channel a little Michael energy when you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, because what might happen if you do?
Yeah. And I know that I had a blog post about excavating, but I couldn't find it this morning. I'll try to find it when I send the follow-up. But I want to say that this particular question was so powerful for me, because when I did my purifying session with Michael, we worked on papers, right? Pretty boring, right? And, that's the way a lot of us approach things. Okay, I gotta get through these papers, right? But this morning when I thought about it, I thought, ooh, what might I find in these papers? What inspiration? What memories? What might I find in those papers? And so now I'm actually looking forward to doing my next stack of papers. And I think you can apply that to anything, particularly memorabilia and photos. And I've experienced that with clients quite a bit, that they'll be going through and slogging through a drawer, and all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, I didn't know where that was. That's like the only thing I had from my grandmother. So I think, getting in touch with the possibilities for joy as you go through whatever you're going through is just magical. And I think, that's a fantastic final topic. I have just a couple of closing thoughts, just to wrap up thoughts that I'll share. But, keep things that add value to your life right now, and that spark joy, to use Marie Kondo's phrase, for you. And when it doesn't add value anymore and you stop enjoying it, let it go. Don't have to go into the drama or the other feelings. Just, I'm not enjoying this anymore. And bless it if you want to bless it and let it go. So if you feel restless or claustrophobic when you look around your space, that's an important signal from your body and mind. It suggests that your space is not supporting your energy as it could. And again, tons of self-compassion and love, and no beating up on yourself, but just looking at how can it? What's one way that I could bring my satisfaction level with this particular desk or this particular corner up 1/2 of a notch just 1/2 of a notch. What's something I could do? I could just put this pile in a folder, perhaps. So just small steps, and remember to get calm and centered before you begin. Breathe, take small, consistent steps, open your heart to new beliefs, and bring your whole self to the process. Allow your decluttering process to be a journey of self-exploration. Mm-hmm. And I know that there are some of you on this call who have already begun that process. And if you haven't, I'm excited for you to begin.
I just want to say thank you to everybody who has stayed on the call with us all this time, and your questions really spurred such discussion and exploration for Pam and me, and so I thank you for that. Thank you for sharing your hearts with us and your time with us today. And I just want to acknowledge, I apologize that we weren't able to get to every question, and we will, in follow-up emails, be sure to address any that we didn't get to specifically. So if we didn't address your specific question, it is on its way in the next few days. And really, really grateful to be able to spend some time with you, get to know some new faces, and wishing you well.
Enjoy your day.
Goodbye. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Appreciate it.
Bye. Thank you so much. It's wonderful.